In the village of Oban, surrounded by thick forests and dark rivers, there lived a proud princess named Zara. She was the only daughter of King Odion, the ruler of the land. Zara was known far and wide for her beauty, her long braided hair, and her sparkling brown eyes. Many men came from different lands to ask for her hand in marriage. They were all strong hunters, wealthy and respected, but Zara always turned them down. Her beauty was legendary. Her long, thick hair shimmered in the sun, and her skin was the color of smooth mahogany. Many said her large, dark eyes held a power that made men weak, and her smile, though rare, was enough to bring hope to anyone who saw it. Yet, for all her beauty, Zara had become known for something else: her pride. As the sole daughter of the royal family, her arrogance had grown with every passing year. Suitor after suitor came, each one wealthier and more powerful than the last. But Zara found fault in them all. Some were too short, others did not wear the finest robes. One came from a family of hunters, which she believed was too lowly for her to consider. No matter how grand their wealth or reputation, Zara's standards were always just out of reach. Her mother, the queen, watched in silence at first. She believed Zara was only waiting for the right man to capture her heart. But after many moons passed and still no suitor had won her favor, the queen began to worry. Zara was no longer a girl. She was a woman, and the whispers in the court had grown louder. People spoke of her arrogance, and some even began to say that no man would ever be good enough for her. One day, the bravest hunter in the village, Kamma, came to the palace. He was tall and strong, with broad shoulders and sharp eyes. He had brought the king many animals from the forest and had saved the village from wild beasts many times. Kamma had always admired Princess Zara and decided to ask for her hand in marriage. But when he approached the princess, she frowned. "Look at you," she said, her voice dripping with disgust. "You're just a hunter with nothing but animal skins. How can you ever think you are good enough for me?" Kamma, hurt and humiliated, left the palace without saying a word. The villagers whispered about it, but Zara didn't care. She was certain a prince would soon come for her. One day, a prince from a neighboring kingdom arrived. Prince Okoye was known for his kindness and his courage. He was not only a brave warrior, but also wise beyond his years. His kingdom flourished under his leadership, and many believed he was destined to become a great king. His riches were endless, and his people adored him. The prince came with gifts of gold, fine fabrics, and rare spices. His entourage was impressive, and even the king of Oban was pleased with the alliance such a marriage would bring. Zara, however, was not moved. She barely glanced at Prince Okoye during the royal dinner, her face set in a look of boredom. When the time came for Prince Okoye to ask for her hand, he spoke with grace and humility. "Princess Zara, I have heard of your beauty and your strength. I believe we could rule together as equals, and I would be honored to call you my queen." Zara's eyes flickered with irritation as she looked at the prince. She leaned back in her chair, running her fingers along the golden bracelets on her wrist. Without even giving him a chance, she stood up and addressed the court, her voice cold and sharp. "I do not need a husband who thinks he is my equal. A king must be stronger than me, wealthier than me, and far more powerful than anyone who has stood before me. You, Prince Okoye, do not meet my standards." Gasps filled the hall. The king and queen exchanged uneasy glances, and the courtiers murmured among themselves. Prince Okoye, his face calm but his heart clearly wounded, bowed his head and left the room in silence. Zara's mother could take no more. Later that evening, she went to Zara's chambers, her heart heavy with concern. Zara sat by her mirror, brushing her hair, a look of indifference on her face as though nothing had happened. "Zara, why do you reject them all?" the queen asked softly, sitting down beside her daughter. Prince Okoye was a good man. He would have made a fine husband. Zara didn't bother turning to face her mother. "He was not good enough. None of them are. I will not settle for less than perfection." "But my dear," the queen said, her voice full of worry, "perfection does not exist. You cannot spend your life waiting for someone who does not exist." Zara finally looked at her mother, her expression hard. "I will know him when I see him." The queen sighed deeply, her heart breaking a little more each time her daughter turned away from wisdom. Little did Zara know that she was leading herself into a path of darkness, one that would soon turn her arrogance into deep regret. One evening, as the sky darkened and the palace quieted, Queen Ada called Nneka to her chambers. Nneka, dressed in her modest yet elegant attire, entered the room with a bow. "Nneka, you must help me with Zara," Queen Ada said, her voice heavy with concern. "She has turned away every suitor that has come for her. She refuses to listen to me or her father. You are her closest companion, the one she trusts most. Please, speak to her. Convince her to choose a husband before it is too late." Nneka nodded, her face calm and composed, but inside, she was filled with envy. All the men who had come to ask for Zara's hand were men Nneka herself could only dream of. Kamma, the strong hunter, the wealthy merchants, the foreign princes, each one of them would have made a fine husband, but they only had eyes for Zara. They never even glanced at Nneka. She had watched as they knelt before the princess, offering their wealth and strength, only to be dismissed with a wave of her hand. "I will speak to her, Your Highness," Nneka said softly, bowing her head. But in her heart she made a silent vow. If Zara found a husband, Nneka would make sure she followed her to her new home. And if the opportunity arose, perhaps Nneka could steal her future husband away. After all, Zara was too arrogant to appreciate the suitors she had been given. That evening, Nneka, her most trusted servant, entered Zara's chambers quietly. Her face was calm, but her eyes held something else, something Zara had not noticed before. It was jealousy. Nneka had watched every suitor come and go, each one wealthier and more handsome than the last. Though she remained a servant, Nneka secretly dreamed of a life beyond servitude, a life where she could be the one to marry a prince. The princess was sitting by her mirror, admiring herself in the reflection, as she often did. Her long, black hair cascaded down her back, and her gown sparkled under the soft glow of the candles. "Princess," Nneka said gently, stepping into the room, "your mother is worried. She fears you may never find a suitable husband if you keep turning everyone away." Zara turned her head slightly, not looking directly at Nneka. "Mother worries too much," she replied with a dismissive wave. "I will not marry just anyone. I have standards, Nneka. I will not settle for less than perfection." "But Princess," Nneka pressed, "many of the men who have come for you are wealthy and strong. They could offer you a life of luxury and protection. Is that not what you desire?" Zara shook her head. "Wealth is not enough. Strength is not enough. I want a man who is perfect in every way, his looks, his manners, his status. I will not marry a man who does not match my own worth." Nneka forced a smile, though her jealousy simmered beneath the surface. "Very well, Princess. But remember, time waits for no one. The perfect man may never come." Zara said nothing, turning her attention back to the mirror. She was certain that her perfect match was out there somewhere, waiting for the right moment to appear. She had no doubt that when he did, he would be everything she had ever dreamed of. Nneka nodded, though inside she seethed. She had served Zara loyally for years, yet she could never escape the feeling of being beneath her. Each time a suitor came for Zara, Nneka wondered what it would be like to take Zara's place, to be the one adored and envied by all. As Zara continued to speak of her high standards and impossible expectations, Nneka's mind began to twist with jealousy. She knew Zara would never see the true value in any man, and she began to form a dangerous plan. If Zara were to marry a man, Nneka would make sure she was close by, close enough to take what Zara did not appreciate. As Nneka left Zara's chambers that night, her heart raced with excitement. She would follow Zara, watch her every move, and when the time was right, she would strike. What Zara didn't know was that her greatest enemy was standing right beside her, and the darkness that would soon enter her life wasn't just from the suitor she would meet, but also from the jealousy that burned within Nneka's heart. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the kingdom of Oban grew restless. The people whispered about the proud princess who refused every suitor, wondering if her arrogance would one day be her downfall. Even the king and queen, once hopeful that Zara would soon find a husband, began to fear that their daughter's pride would lead her down a dangerous path. Yet Zara remained as proud as ever, convinced that the world would eventually present her with the man she deserved. She did not know that her arrogance would soon lead her into the arms of something far more dangerous than any man. Weeks passed, and Zara continued to reject every man who came before her. Then, one evening, something changed. A stranger appeared in the kingdom of Oban, a man unlike any she had seen before. He was tall and handsome, with eyes that seemed to hold the secrets of the world. His clothes were unlike anything Zara had seen, rich and exotic, fit for a king. He introduced himself as a prince from a distant land, and from the moment Zara laid eyes on him, she was captivated. Something about him was different, magnetic. Her heart, once so cold and guarded, began to stir. But little did Zara know, the man who stood before her was not a prince. He was something far more dangerous, and the path she was about to take would lead her into a darkness she could not escape. Meanwhile, back in the palace, Queen Ada lay awake. A shadow of unease had settled over her, and sleep refused to come. She had been having strange dreams, dreams of her daughter in danger, weeping bitterly, surrounded by darkness. These dreams left her unsettled, and no matter how hard she tried, she could not shake the feeling that something terrible was coming. The next morning, the queen went to Zara, her heart heavy with worry. "My daughter," she said gently, "I had a dream last night. A terrible dream. You were crying, and I could not reach you. There was darkness all around you." Zara, enchanted by the mysterious prince she had met, brushed off her mother's concerns. "Mother, you worry too much. There is nothing to fear. I have finally found the man I have been waiting for." But the queen's heart remained heavy. She could sense the darkness that Zara could not see, and she prayed that the gods would protect her daughter from the danger she was walking into.